Parents pushed me out of the house to make space for their so-called golden child, and then, years after they finally got the daughter they had been longing for, that same daughter ran away from home at just 13. Now my parents are desperately reaching out to me, imploring me to come to their rescue, while apparently having told my sister a twisted version of events that paints me as the one who walked out on them. The reality is so much more complicated and painful, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around the idea that they would lie to their own daughter about why I was forced to leave. Growing up, I always carried a sense of being an embarrassment or a letdown to both my mother and father. They openly yearned for a daughter, and for an extended period, they had tried without success. When I was born, they made it obvious that my arrival, as a son, didn't meet their biggest dream. I remember overhearing them refer to me as extra, or even leftover, on more than one occasion. I didn't fully grasp how hurtful that was back then, but as I matured, the impact of those comments became incredibly clear. It felt like I was a placeholder kid, an accidental addition they never really wanted. When I think back, I recall family gatherings where they would discuss their hopes for a daughter so openly that it made everyone around them uncomfortable. They would even respond to people's well-meaning comments with statements like, "If we don't get a girl, it's like having no kids at all." For a long time, I tried to convince myself that I was imagining their disappointment, but it was all too plain to see. When I turned 15, they finally got their wish. My sister was born. She arrived like a shining beam of everything they had prayed for, and they absolutely showered her with love, money, and their undivided time. Once she was a part of the family, I became virtually invisible to them. Any minute speck of attention I had once received evaporated overnight. It was almost as if my very presence in that house became an afterthought. Sure, they had never been doting parents to me in the first place, but it got much worse once my sister was there, front and center. They had no time to care about my interests or my activities. They were far too busy celebrating every breath my sister took, as though she could do no wrong. At some point, I realized this was my new reality. She was their top priority, and I was just an extra mouth to feed. By my 18th birthday, it was glaringly obvious they wanted me gone. There was no party, no heartfelt speech, no sense of pride in how far I'd come. Instead, they summoned me for a sit-down that had nothing to do with cake or presents. They told me, flat out, they needed more room for my sister and that I was draining resources they could devote to her. At the time, I pleaded with them for a short extension, just a couple more months so I could gather enough money to rent a place of my own. They shut me down instantly, insisting I'd had sufficient time to prepare. At that point, it didn't matter that I was still just a teenager fresh out of high school with minimal savings. They had no interest in waiting around. So, they packed me off with a few bags of my clothes and whatever scattered cash I had,